Electricast.
There are people out there all across the country pushing boundaries to grow the game of golf. Like champion speed golfer Lauren Cupp, who plays faster than anyone else. And Will Lowry, whose work in the golf community inspires more kids to get into the game. As a champion partner of the Masters, Bank of America supports everyone determined to find out what's possible. In golf and in life. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Bank of America N.A. member FDIC, copyright 2025, Bank of America Corporation, all rights reserved.
The kids are still at practice, and I have no idea what's for dinner.
You can get a rotisserie chicken and 2 sides for just $15 in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Who said that? Who's in my house? Don't play with me, because I'm not the one.
It's just your friendly Walmart announcer. This is a commercial.
Oh, okay. You were saying dinner for a family was just $15?
Yep, it'll be at your door by the time you get the kids home from practice. Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Subject to availability, restrictions, and fees apply.
Now that was a helpful commercial.
What's going on, everybody? It's Craig, your favorite executive producer from MTP. With the holiday season finally upon us, and the fact that COVID is back and shutting down our sports again, we figured we'd like to take this episode to look back at a very successful 2021 for us here at Missing the Point. On this episode, we're going to look back and listen to some of the highlights from some of our favorite interviews from the past year. If you want to listen to the full episodes of any of these interviews, all the links will be in the show notes. Up first, from episode 48, on March 30th, we sat down with Hall of Fame sports writer from the Boston Globe, Dan Shaughnessy.
I did stumble upon a pretty cool story, and I was wondering if you could give us a little insight into it, Dan. So 1985 Eastern Conference Finals, you noticed that Larry Bird has taped 2 of his fingers together. And that I think you made the comment that it might be a little bit harder for him to shoot, or his shooting percentage would go down. And he challenged you to a free throw shooting contest with one of his hands wrapped. So I'd love just to hear a first person kind of how that went.
Well, it's now that I can sell a little product here. And I just wrote a book. The book's called Wish It Lasted Forever, Beyond November. So I had that team for 4 years, every day. And in those days, it was nobody's fault. But the way it was then, we lived with them. We traveled, we waited for bags, hotels, buses, practice, everything. It was like being on the team without the groupies or the fame or the money. But other than that, it was the same thing. So there we were. And you just got to know them, and we were able to tell the readers what they were like. And it's very rare time. So yeah, they called me Scoop. That was my nickname. Whenever I'd come into the locker room, Larry'd say, Scoop, do you ever notice how quiet it gets? You walk in here, and it's true, because nobody trusted me. It was, a very good system we had. So, yeah, he was taping it like this at practice. So there had been a barroom fight 2 nights earlier, and he might have had a broken bone. I don't know. But if you look up his playoff shooting, he shot 52% that year. It was his middle year of his 3 straight MVPs, height of his powers, the 60-point game, all that stuff, buzzer beaters left and right. And he got in a barroom fight, messed up his hand. He shot like 42% of the 9 playoff games after this happened. But he was taping it like this at practice. And I said, you can't play in the game like that, right? And he said, Scoop, I could tape my whole hand up, make more shots than you. And I'm like, that's probably true, but that's not what we're talking about here. And it was almost like a pool hustler thing. He kind of must have done it before. So they taped his hand like this. The thumb was taped. It was like he had a boxing glove on. And we did 100. He said, we'll do 100 free throws, $5 a throw, 10 shots around. And says, you want to go first or I'll go first? I said, I'll go first. He said, you don't like the pressure, do you? I said, that's right. So I went first. I made 6 out of 10. I was a good free throw shooter in high school. I sucked. I was a player, but I could shoot free throws. Made 6 out of 10, just standing around. And he made 6 out of 10 doing this. And then by the time he got to the 3rd round, because I was rebounding and they were all going to he said, I figured this out. And he did. And he ended up making 86 with his hand like that, 86 out of 100. And I started choking because I'm seeing $5 bills flying through the air every time I'm letting go here now. And so I lost $160 and went to the old Bay Bank and got 820s out of the ATM. Next night, he was doing his early shooting. I gave him his money. He stuffed it in his sock. He played with my 820s in his sock that night. And I expensed this because I wrote a funny story about it. And I told my boss, the story came at some cost. I had to incur some expenses here. And evidently the word wager is frowned upon by the IRS. So it bounced back to accounting. So we switched it to $20 lunches with Robert Parrish and just called it a day. And I got my money back. But that
Nice.
did in fact happen. So thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Actually, keep it with that same year, because I know you brought up the game where you scored a 6 against Atlanta and New Orleans. You see the highlights, but I'm like, the highlights doesn't do it justice, man. Like, just how was that game? And just like how hot was he? Were the Atlanta Hawks really just fawning over how good he was? You got fawning over the bench.
He was like invincible that year. He was at the height of his trash talking powers. He would tell guys what he was going to do in the inbounds pass, that he would do it. He started banking 3-pointers just because he could for the fun of it. And, put his hand out for cash running down the other end of the floor. And McHale had gotten 56 9 days earlier.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Larry was feeding him because Larry hated Kent Benson, who was an Indiana guy who disrespected him in college. So he let McHale torch Kent Benson and get him ejected from the game. Kept feeding McHale the ball, and Kev got to 56, and he came out with like a minute to go. Larry said, well, Dad, you should stay in there because I'm going to get that. And then 9 days later, we're in New Orleans because the Hawks played home games in New Orleans because they couldn't sell out the Omni in Atlanta. So we stayed at the New Orleans Hyatt and took a bus, went by Rick Roby's high school on the way, and Roby went to Kentucky, which was pissed off Larry because Kentucky didn't recruit Larry Bird. They thought he was too slow, so they took Roby, who was even slower. And Larry always said it was all bribes. So we went by the high school. He said, that's where Footer got all those bribes when he was in high school, right there, all fired up. And we get to the gym, and it was all Celtic fans in New Orleans that night. And they put the press right behind the Hawks bench. We were a little elevated. We can see ourselves on that. And Mike Fratello was the head coach, short little guy. And Ricky Brown was a guy who had been a Celtic draftee. He was on that team. They had Dominique Wilkins. They had some great players. Doc Rivers was on that team. And it kind of grew. And then by the fourth quarter in the Hawks bench, they were a bunch of knuckleheads, and they were like leaning into each other and celebrating and fall down. And Larry started like going over to that side and just shooting right in front of him and just pointing to them. And all that video, I mean, they're not making it up. It's true. The Hawks were actually fined for that. It was bad. And Fratello kept switching guys. He kept changing men and trying everything. And Fratello, he got into a little fight with Ricky Brown. We saw the whole thing. And when it was over, the GM of the Hawks came into the Celtic locker room with the game ball and had Larry sign it. It was like a souvenir for the Hawks. He just dropped 50 in our heads. It was like, that all happened. It was good.
Oh, what an honor, right?
Good times.
Is he the only player that you've ever seen reach that level where he starts just playing around in the middle of games?
Yeah, the talking was off the charts. We could hear it because in those days we said, I've got pictures I'm using in this book where we're sitting right, where those people pay $1,000 now, like we were there with our table right there. And the worst was the Julius Erving. Julius was 36 years old and Larry was in the middle of this 3-year MVP at the height of his powers. And Julius would have toyed with Larry Bird in his heyday, but he was cooked and Larry was dominant. He was bigger and stronger. And Larry had like 38 in the second half or 38 by the third quarter. Oof. Julius was like 1 for 9. And Larry was just, get somebody out here, old man. You can't guard me. And finally, Julius went for his throat. There's a famous picture. They're grabbing each other by the throat. And it was at Donnybrook. And it did not end well.
I love it. That could never happen now. Guys would be kicked out the league.
Oh my God!
Basically, like Kermit Washington, right back in the day, where he did to. To Rudy Thompson. I mean, that was a little different than Rudy Thompson.
Take a look at the McHale takedown of Rambis in Game 4 of the '84 Finals when McHale comes across the floor and clotheslines Rambis. Rambis's foot almost hits the rim. He's so upended, and it was 2 shots. There was not even a flagrant rule then. They had to change the rules all around on that. So. That did happen. And,
common foul, right, exactly.
Up next, from episode 68 on June 22nd, Boston Bruins writer from Causeway Crowd and Fansided and host of the Brew Wings and Things podcast, it's Tuca time with Kaylee Allard.
I was the leader of the Tuca Hate Club. The leader. For a very long time. I'm sorry, I know, but he changed my mind a lot in the Washington series, and even more so in the Islander series. I think the reason, just for clarification purposes, the reason why I was in the Tuca Hate Club is because he's just so damn talented. He is really such a good goalie, and it felt like when you needed him the most, last year excluded, that he was just never there, right? But with him playing hurt this year, and with him not wanting to be pulled, do you think that he will change the mind of fans like me in this town because of the guts that he showed? Or is he just relegated to the, you're good, but you'll never beat Tim?
Oh, Tuca will never get the credit unless he gets the Stanley Cup as the starter. I've spoken to many Tuca haters because they're always in my Twitter, and I have to see what they say about it, unfortunately.
Yep.
At this point, I just don't respond to them. It's not even worth my time. But I think Bruins fans and Boston fans in general are so spoiled. Like, I always use this goaltender's name. Look at Tristan Jarry on the Penguins. That man cannot stop a beach ball. Like, I'm not even, like, no joke. When I was watching him play against the Islanders, I was like, this is their starter in the playoffs. Like, this guy would maybe be decent in the AHL. It's that bad. Like, but no, because people complain when Tuukka, so they want him to show heart, but he showed heart by playing through an injury, but now he's stupid for doing that. So it's a lose-lose for Tuukka. Like, oh, he's a quitter. But if he sat out, they'd say, oh, he has an injury. He's faking and giving up on his team. But because he played, he's hurting the team by playing with an injury. So the guy cannot win. So, I mean, if you look up the symptoms for a torn hip labrum,
Bad.
and you're a goaltender playing in a playoff game, sliding left to right, practically doing splits, sticking out your legs, people are like limping when they have torn hip labrums. It hurts to walk. And this man said, no, I'm suiting up for my team because I feel like I should. And he told Coach Cassidy he was healthy. Like, he was like, no, I'm good. And Bruce was like, he told us he was healthy. So this guy wanted to play, but that's still not good enough. And it never will be.
Yeah. So I echo those spoiled Boston sports fans times a million. So a little fun fact about me, I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm a Cowboys fan, unfortunately. It's one of my biggest flaws in life, I know.
You guys don't know my other teams, but I can tell you later. I'm not all Boston.
That's what it comes down to, though, is like we have a different perspective of this. That, like, so when teams make it to a championship, I never see that as like a disappointment, and I never will. If you are good enough to play for a championship trophy, that is a successful season. You have done your job. You were in it to win it to the end. It's unbelievable that no one gives credit to Tuukka for leading us to that Stanley Cup in 2013, leading us to another Stanley Cup in 2019. Yes, we didn't win it, but you know what the hardest trophy to win in sports is? Lord Stanley Cup. And this dude has brought us within one game of doing that twice. And I've been echoing this since day one with Tuukka. It's like exactly what you said about the Penguins goal. People don't know how good we really have it, having this guy in net for as long as we've had him in net. Like, you think back to all these goalies, like Jean-Sebastien Giguère, amazing with Anaheim. What was his shelf life? 3 to 4 years? Like, only the greats are around for this long. And just because he didn't get the cup, to me, doesn't make him not a great. Granted, yes, could he have shown heart in those game sevens? Could he have played better in those game sevens? 100%.
Well,
but listen, the guy got us there. What else it comes down to is, like, listen, in that game 7 against St. Louis, do you remember that first quarter? Jordan Bennington stood on his goddamn head. Yep. We had so many opportunities. And do you know what I remember about the Bruins? It's never about Tuukka Rask. It's about missed opportunities, missed open nets, which that reminds me of something else. The worst missed open net I've ever seen in my goddamn life with Pasternak. That was unbelievable. But that's always what I remember. And I'm interested to know, like, so you're not a Patriots fan? Okay, cool. So I'm interested to know, like, when you look back on those seasons, those 2013, 2019 Stanley Cup runs, do you look at those as disappointments, or do you look at those as like, listen, that was amazing. We got all the way there. Yeah, we didn't win it, but what else can you ask for?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better, honestly.
I'm sure you could have.
It's like 2013 against the Blackhawks. Everyone brings up the 17 seconds, like that heartbreaker. Like, but I actually have recently rewatched those 2 goals, and I think it actually was Andrew Ference and Chara defending. They were nowhere near the net. They were off in no man's land. They weren't like Tuca was left out to dry. Like the Blackhawks were hammering him. Like it was 2 greasy goals too. Like it was horrible goals that never should have happened. They should have never been that close to the net at that corner, sliding that puck in. I think it was Bickle and I forget who else scored it, but that's all on Rask. But the guy is one man. Like he's one man. And I honestly see the 2 cup finals with him as a success, because also in game 7 against the Blues, the Bruins scored 1 freaking goal. And it was Matt Grzelcyk in the 3rd period with like a few minutes left, and the Blues were already up 4. Like nobody showed up. No Bergeron, no anyone. No one was there. So you don't win by not scoring in game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. Like the Bruins beat Vancouver in a shutout 4-0. That's how you win. Like, I mean, Tuca, like you said, Tuca isn't perfect. I'm not saying he doesn't let in soft goals or have bad days, but no player is perfect, but somehow Tuca gets all the blame. Like when they win, oh, Tuca, but when they lose, oh, it's Tuca's fault. So it's definitely a success even getting that far with him.
Yeah, I think the 2013, you just came up against a wagon, right? The Blackhawks were at the height of their powers, and they were just so good that for that run, I'll always remember it was the Toronto series, right? You're down 3 goals, and Bergeron scores in overtime. Jack, was it? It was one of the play-by-play guys that you just hear Bergeron like that. That's
one of my listen. I don't mean to interrupt. That's one of my favorite sports memories. Like literally since beginning of sports, I still go back sometimes. If I'm having a bad, rough day, I will go back and watch that 3rd period of that game just because of how amazing it really was.
Like that team had heart, and I would always say, and Bobby can attest to this. I don't hold 2013 against him. Like that, he played so well. I don't remember the stats. I think he was like 14-8 with a. It wasn't
9. I think it was.
It was like 14-8 with a sub-2 goals against average. Which, by the way, like those stats are comparable to Tim Thomas in 2011. They might even be a little bit better. The game 7 in 2019, the team didn't show up. They hung them out to dry, but that's a game where 4-1 feels too much. Like maybe like I think my outlook on him, and again I'm just speaking for me, my outlook on him would have been different if that game ended at like 2-1, right? Even if they're up 2-0, you just show that you're gonna fight your ass off. So I think this year he showed guts. And do you think he had to? Like, do you think he knew all the things that we were saying? Not us, but maybe even people in the locker room after the whole bubble experience last year. For someone who writes about the team and is a far bigger puckhead than I am, do you think that was on his mind all year that I have to be here?
I truly don't think Tuca cares what people think. He cares about his team, but he doesn't read Twitter. He's not reading articles. He's not listening to Boston sports radio, especially. But every year, like in the post loss Zoom at the end of the season, just this year, they asked all the players about Tuca. They're like, do you think it's fair, the criticism he gets? And they're like, no, like the guy fights his butt off every single game for us. We would be nowhere without him. I mean, obviously they're not going to trash their goalie, but everyone knows, like, I know that Tuca knows too. He doesn't know the extent or the specifics, but he knows that he's heavily criticized. And I think he feeds off it, but I don't think it's always on his mind, like, oh, I need to please the fans. Like, I don't think he cares. He just wants to do his best because he's also very passionate and he's known to be an angry goalie. And that's another reason I hate when people say he has no passion, because I'm sure you've seen the infamous video of him throwing milk crates back in the AHL when he lost a game. And one of my favorite pictures is when I think it was the Lightning scored when Tuca lost his stick blade and he took it off the ice and was shoving it in the ref's face. Like, look, I lost my blade. Like, he's just like angry and fiery and passionate. And that to me shows that he does care. Like, people are like, oh, like he's emotional, this and that. Like, I think it's awesome. And I think he wants to do everything he can, because the guy, if he didn't care, he wouldn't have played hurt. So
Right.
that's a really big deal.
On April 6th, we were honored to be joined by former general manager of the Boston Celtics from 1984 to 1997, Jan Volk. In episode 50, Jan talks to us about how he first started working in the Boston Celtics front office under Red Auerbach, and how he was hand-chosen by Red to be his successor as general manager. Jan also talked to us about some of his favorite stories from the front office, from learning what the salary cap was to some of his favorite NBA draft moves, from trading for Bill Walton in 1985 to the drafting of Len Bias in 1986.
The period where Red did everything, right? Like, you know, before you got there, famously he was scouting other teams, you know, scouting college players, like doing absolutely everything on the list. So he, like, when to feel handpicked by him, you must have felt, oh, wow, this is a job he probably has a way to do it already, you know, himself. So I better get it right. Or is it just in context, in retrospect, being like, oh, that was a big moment?
Well, let me tell you something about Red that people don't readily recognize. For a guy who had the success that he had, and for a guy who had the ego that he had that he needed to have, was a surprise. It's a surprise to people to realize that he had holes in his game that he knew about. He knew he wasn't particularly good at this or that or something else, and he hired people to fill those roles. And that was a great opportunity for me, because he hired me in that context. And ultimately, my career evolved as the business was evolving. There's no better way to learn than to be a participant in something with like running a team franchise when nobody else really knows how to do it either.
Yeah, you're kind of building the plane while you're flying it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe not quite that, but nobody else got hurt, but there were mistakes made. We made mistakes, and for the most part, we did pretty well with it. The interesting thing about this, when Red decided to retire, he announced it at the B'nai B'rith dinner, which was a dinner, a charitable event that was held each year prior to the first game at a nice venue and lots of people, maybe 2,000 people. And he would always speak, and he was speaking. This would have been in October maybe of 83, give or take. I think that's when it was. And he got up and announced, unbeknownst to any of us, that he was going to retire at the end of the year. And then he did something that just blew my socks off. In front of these 2,000 people, that he said, and I'm recommending that Jan Volk take my place.
Oh, wow. You didn't even know that you were lined up.
Never discussed that with me.
Wow. What was your reaction at the time?
Red got what he wanted most of the time. Happens that this worked out well for me too.
When you were going to his office, when you got summoned to his office that day, did you know? It sounds like you knew at the time, oh, this is a big deal, I better not screw this up. Or is it just like looking back, you're like, oh, that was a big moment?
Yeah, I'm much more so looking back than in the moment itself. I was. It caught my attention. I mean, it was something I'd never done before. As I said, I'd never been summoned to the locker room. I'd never been in the locker room with just Red, and it was that was notable. But I didn't understand the significance that it had, because, of course, it led to so many other things.
Yeah, it led to so many things, because from 1971 to 1979, 1980, you held a number of positions and very, very good. I mean, now you look at sports and you know who the traveling secretaries are. You know who some of these people are. And then in 1980, he named, obviously a few years later, he names you or suggests you as his successor. But in 1980, he basically sits you right next to him. And that started really in that moment, started one of the best runs in the franchise's history in the 1980s.
Well, that had a lot to do with the players, much more to do with anything else. But look, it was an interesting place to work. It was a great place to work. People who began to work at the Celtics had to understand, and most of them did, or they didn't stay very long. They had to understand that no matter what they did or how successful they were, Red was going to get the credit. In the end, that's what was going to happen. And if you could live with that, you found yourself into a really, really mom and pop, welcoming organization where everybody helped everybody else. There was in that type of environment when you know Red's going to get the credit, you're really the only opportunity for you to get that kind of credit was collectively as part of a group. You find people work together very, very effectively without worried about who's going to get the credit, who had to worry about what. And it was a nice place to be.
It's funny you say that because I heard the credit for this may or may not be true. I have to hear from the horse's mouth, but I hear the credit for the way Larry Bird was drafted should go to you, though, right? Wasn't that your side of the argument that you could get away with drafting him as a junior, waiting a year, and then getting him in? Or did I hear wrong?
Oh, you got it sort of right. I mean, I knew the rules. As I said, Red knew he had holes in his game, and he hired people to fill those holes. That was one of the holes it was getting more and more complex. It's extraordinarily complex now.
Right.
But the advent of the salary cap, which came after we had drafted Larry, but the advent of the salary cap really was a significant event for me because we were capped, and we had to learn it really quite quickly. Red relied on us and relied on me to know that, and the same is true as you point out the issue with the draft, whether we could draft him or not. It wasn't that there wasn't a rule there. It had been modified, and Red didn't know that. And yes, he trusted me, but no, he didn't. And what happened is Tom Sanders popped in. Tom Sanders Satch for a period of time was at that time was the head coach for half a season or so, and he saw the two of us, two very stubborn people, trying to convince the other that they were right, and Satch had the perfect solutions. Call the league; they'll tell you. And we did. And David Stern happened to be the general counsel at the time; he was not yet commissioner, and he verified it. So. But we were also in the right spot for that because Larry had told the world he was not coming out. He was going to go back for his senior year. And the old rule was that once he went back to school, an early entry draftee like that, the team lost their exclusive rights to him and he went back into the pool. In reality, what ultimately happened is you had the exclusive rights until the day before the next draft, which is how we drafted him.
I guess he was worth the wait. It worked out.
Red would tell you, to be the first to say he was better than I thought he was. I thought he's going to be really good. Is what he would say, but I didn't know he was going to be this good.
Yeah. How do you know?
One of the best in franchise history, right? So,
any franchise history.
You're absolutely right.
I think I still want to stick with the 70s. I know we kind of touched around different things that happened in the 70s, and you mentioned the Charlie Scott trade, for Paul Salas, who was one of the better bench players that we've had here in Boston, who came on to become a great coach later on in the NBA as well. But obviously, there was two championships in the 70s, and they won in 74 and 76 under Tom Heinsohn's tutelage. So, what would you say was the better team out of those two? And, do you think Tommy Heinsohn should have stayed longer as the coach there? 'Cause I know he was only there for about 4 or 5 seasons.
Well, I've had questions like that, but never would be comparing 74 and 76. A lot of similarity, great heart. When you've got your center's Dave Cowens. I mean, you've automatically got a huge step towards that. I tell you, I don't think I can choose there. I think that was an extraordinary team. They were small. They ran the break. They were very active, and they played hard with talent. So I'm gonna beg off that. As far as Tommy is concerned, Tommy would be the first to tell you that in the end, coaches are hired to be fired, and it takes a while. It takes a while to burn out, but most of them do in one way or another, and it's usually a consequence of having been with the same players over a protracted period of time, where there's a lot of the cajoling that goes on. That in Tommy's case, I think the players got tired of his interaction with the referees, but in the end, he was very supportive of his players, very much so, and I think they appreciated it much more so after he had left. I know that, for example, JoJo, who got traded, ultimately he came back and he saw how special it was playing for Tommy, and he missed it.
On May 13th, we sat down with the then producer of the Section 10 podcast and co-host of Live BP on WEEI in Boston, Steve Perrault. From episode 59, let's talk some Sox, kid.
I mean, Barnes has been pretty good so far this year.
He's been really good. I mean, you could make the argument Barnes is the best closer in baseball, which is insane. I mean, I was always...
Words I never thought. Yeah.
I know. I've always been ripping Matty backpacks, and all of a sudden it's like now he's the best closer in baseball, and I can't really say anything about it. Like, I know Chapman's been really good. You go down the line, there's other guys that are performing well, but he knows it too, which is good. Like, I'm glad that he's carrying himself like I'm the guy, because like there's such a difference between being the closer, like because you were placed in that role, and actually being a closer. And Barnes is proving that he's a closer, which is blowing my mind. I always thought it was just going to be that he was named the guy, but you never felt good when he came out of there and out of the bullpen in save situations. But yeah, he has a 0 ERA when in save situations. So you can't really get much better than that. And to that point too, why would the Red Sox go out of their way to give up pieces they probably don't think they need to give up for a closer when they have a closer? Now, if you really want to go all in and say Kimbrel's your 8th inning guy, because right now Ottavino cannot be the 8th inning guy. My God, he's an absolute mess. He walks guys all over the place. Same with Darwinzon. Darwinzon can't find the plate. So maybe if they wanted to go like all in and have Kimbrel as the 8th inning guy, how bizarre would that be, by the way, that your former closer comes back as the 8th inning guy when he has an 0.7 ERA? But I don't see it happening, but yeah, I know. I was going to say, whatever gets the job done, they're going to have to add pieces of the bullpen. I just don't think it's going to be Kimbrel.
Your former World Series winning closer too.
I know. Even though that, my God, that postseason, and like everybody
that Yankees
knows,
game, the Yankees game was the one that was the scariest game of my entire life. That was up there, man.
I snuck into Yankee Stadium for that. I should have just got tickets, but like I was hanging with my buddies, and I was like, all right, the Red Sox are about to beat the Yankees in the playoffs. I have to go to this. I was like 20 minutes away. I'm like, let's do it. Uber to Yankee Stadium, get in there, and I'm just peeing my pants. This guy is just the worst. Like, he's given up. Gary Sanchez almost had a home run. That thing barely missed going out. I don't know if it was Judge. Somebody else went to the warning track. I was like, end this game. And then the ending was crap.
It was Giancarlo that gave them that game. I don't know if you remember, but Kimbrel couldn't find the plate. And Giancarlo swung at 2 sliders that weren't even close. And it was like, if I was his head coach, I'd be sitting there in the dugout like, bro, that bat's not leaving your shoulder. Like, I don't care.
I don't think Boone had the balls to tell him that.
Well, yeah.
I know.
But
No, it was the Bregman game. It was game 4 against Houston that year. That's the game that got me.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, Bregman was up. I was like, oh, my God. Like, I was like, please. Like, I just knew that Bregman was going to hit a grand slam, and I was going to be yelling F-bombs in my house for the rest of the night.
It was a guarantee that he was going to make good contact. There was no way Bregman was like striking out there. And Bregman did himself no favors, by the way. He had that IG video or the IG story, whatever, that he posted when they went back to Houston of him like rocking Evaldi or whoever it was. Yeah, and they obviously the Sox saw that, and that's all you needed to see, and the series ends in Houston. But that Benny catch was incredible, and now I wish Benny was still here.
Did you say you snuck into Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, it was a hell of a process. I just like the sound of it too. It's like I snuck in to see the Red Sox beat the Yankees in the playoffs. It sounded cool, but no,
more of a middle finger. It's like
I know, seriously,
the Yankees.
Yeah, and I was all undercover. I didn't have Sox stuff on or anything, so it looked like I could have been like on the staff or something there at Yankee Stadium. But no, it was because like basically it was incredible, right? Because so many people are leaving dejected, Yankee fans, because the Red Sox are about to knock them out of the playoffs. And so naturally they have the gates open, but they still have security people that are kind of like, they're in the mode of like, we're 3 outs away from I can go home and not have to worry about this stupid team anymore because they have to work all year, obviously. And so I just kind of slid in, found my way in. The first try was a failure. I bumped into this kid that couldn't be any older than 4 years old, and his dad was ready to kill me. He was just like, "You want to go, buddy? You want to go?" I'm like, "Sir, there is no way I want to fight. That's literally the last thing I want to do. I'm trying to get in to see my team win this series. There's no way."
I also didn't run over your 4-year-old on purpose.
I know. It's because they had a flood of people coming out, and all of a sudden I'm like, I was trying to be sneaky, and then I went right into this kid. But no, find a way to get in there, and then the Kimbrel inning happened, and it was the ending of that game was so weird, right? Because they have the ground out to what's his face, Nunez. He falls over when he throws it, and like they barely got him out. They had to check the replay, but whatever. They got out of Yankee Stadium with the win. That's all that matters.
And you got into Yankee Stadium to see the win, so that's perfect.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Episode 73 on July 20th featured Andy O'Donnell of TikTok fame and the OD on Sports podcast. In this clip, Annie and the boys discuss the troubling circumstances of Trevor Bauer's in-season suspension for alleged sexual assault.
So we have to bring this name up, but we have to bring this story up.
Okay.
Trevor Bauer.
Good.
I know. We have the same opinion on Trevor. Well, we all have the same opinion on Trevor Bauer.
I would hope you.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, Ann's going to sign off real quick if we don't. No.
I wouldn't sign off. We'd have a discussion for sure. But
well, let's have a discussion anyway, because it's a hot button topic, and they just extended his suspension, administrative leave through July 27th.
Hold on. The key part of that, though, Joe, is his paid administrative leave.
Paid, yeah. He's
paid administrative leave, which is something that people who make a lot of money are afforded to that some other people are not. But what are you're in LA, San Diego, so you're kind of boots on the ground, and for lack of a better term here. What are your thoughts on the Trevor Bauer situation?
Every time I've been asked this question, I do feel the need to kind of clear the air on my stance, because when the Dodgers first signed Bauer, personally, honestly, the reigning Cy Young winner, I was excited. Anyone that's going to suit up in Dodger blue, I want them to do well. I'm going to root for their success. And in terms of his past tweets and, the whole ordeal with him harassing women on Twitter, I'm of the belief that we can change, that we can improve ourselves as people. So I said, who am I to say that this young man can't either? I say young man, I think he's older than me. Who am I to say this guy can't improve himself and grow as a person either? So I said, I'll give him a chance. I'll root for him. He's a Dodger. He's on our team. However, that stance does not come into play in terms of domestic violence and what I read by The Athletic. That was absolutely horrific. I think I've taught every Dodger fan that I've spoken to. I know it's not the collective view of the fan base, but I think it's of the majority, is that we're done with him. Honestly, at this point in time, this Dodgers team has been, and I hate bringing play into this on such a serious topic, but this Dodgers team, despite despite one of the top records in the league, they really haven't hit their stride in the first half of the season. They've been very inconsistent. So I think taking this distraction, and he is a distraction. He's, for lack of a better word, I mean, the vlogging, the internet stuff and everything. I think it's the best for the team to just move on, but I know that's not necessarily the way things have to happen, because of, there was a whole deal when everything came out and the Dodgers didn't say anything, and Dave Roberts said, well, our hands are tied because it's at the league level. And I understand that the Dodgers couldn't suspend him and they couldn't just outright kick him off the team, but Dave Roberts absolutely had in his jurisdiction to take him out of the rotation. Absolutely. He's suspended and sat players for worse. He sat Cody Bellinger for not hustling to second base one game back in 2018. He sat Yasiel Puig for showing up late to practice. You're telling me you can't take Trevor out of the game because of this entire, for one, just aside from the whole investigation, the fact that there's no way he's going to be focused on the game on that Sunday, and it's going to be a distraction for the locker room, if anything. But no, you're going to say, no, he's going to start on the mound. What's the message that you're sending to your fans, to Dodger fans who are a very diverse group? I feel like that's one of the most best things about sports, is just that, every fan base is just a melting pot of different income classes, races, backgrounds, whatever. But domestic violence and sexual assault affect everybody. So that message there I thought was communicated very poorly. Will he ever, do I think he'll ever see a major? It depends on how the investigation goes, and investigations take time, as we all know. But I don't want him suiting up in Dodger blue ever again, regardless of how this goes down, because he didn't deny it. He said it did happen. It was just consensual. And I don't see him suiting up in Dodger blue at all. So I say cut the ties as soon as you can. I do want him, if and when he's found guilty and, the process does it, I do want him to be held accountable and responsible, because there's a young woman who is dealing with probably hell right now, not only just physically from injuries, but emotionally, internally, trauma, all that. But yeah, I don't want to see him on a diamond, and I don't see another team taking a chance on him either. Frankly, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think any level of talent is worth it. I don't think the mess is worth it. And I think a lot of people are going to question Andrew Friedman and the due diligence that they did during the signing. I don't entirely blame him, because like I said, I kind of saw the tweets from years ago. I said, not great, but not illegal. Like, it's not illegal to be a douchebag. It's not illegal to be a jerk online, unfortunately. But it's one of those things where you look back and said, where was the stone left unturned? Where was there signs there that this was a problem? We'll never know. But yeah, I'm done with Trevor Bauer, and I'm done with his age. I'm done with Rachel Luba too. Honestly, I've been supportive of her because women in sports, and she's done great things.
Yep.
I root for her success, but the way she responded to this and the statement she put out there and releasing the text messages, trying to oust this woman, it's spineless to me.
There's so much, and on face level, I think we all agree on the fact that what happened was not okay. As Mike and I have an unofficial segment on all of our shows now of that's something you can't do, or you just can't do that. You can't say that. You can't do that. And there's so much left to find out in this story, because for him personally, he, like you said, basically came out and said it did happen, but it was consensual. And she came out and said consensual to a point. And then that's where, when someone says there's a point and then they weren't comfortable with it, that's endgame. That's it right there. Yep. Anything that happens beyond that is not okay. And that's where Trevor Bauer crossed the line. I agree with you on Rachel Luba. I think, and we have to go here because it is sports. It is people that are successful. Money talks. And for her, money was definitely a part of it. He is her biggest client. And for the second biggest,
that too, him and Yasiel Puig.
Yeah, well, okay, well, all right. She just lost a few more points. I forgot Yasiel Puig was one of her.
She don't have a great track record with her.
No, I guess not. And then you look at Dave Roberts, and you mentioned pulling people out of the lineup for doing a lot less. I mean, we're talking about on-field stuff, because he said hands are tied. It's at the MLB level. When he said hands are tied, I think he meant his hands are tied. I think the decision was above him, and as a father and a husband and someone who has not been in that situation, but wouldn't you want to take a step back and be like, I don't really care, like, he's not in my starting rotation, like, take a stand? But then it comes down to money and a job for him, for Roberts, and it's just like
to Andy's point, right? If you're going to bench someone for not hustling to second,
well, that's what I'm saying.
Like, can't you find it within you just to bench someone for essentially raping somebody? Like, just if that's ever even thrown out there, like, okay, like, you're out until this is cleared up. Also,
right.
The MLB has the power to do a couple of interesting things, right? They could say, like, listen, during this investigation, like, because domestic violence is in there, it empowers them to transfer liabilities to the Dodgers. So if Manfred doesn't want to come down with the ruling, he could say, listen, like, you guys deal with it. Or what he could do, I'm interested in, for your take on this, Andy. What would you think about them voiding his contract? Is that the way that they should go?
I say this knowing that, I mean, I feel like they can't do anything. I mean, the MLB has to do its own investigation, and that has to all be cleared up. And you got to think there's going to be, unless there's, I can't think of a situation where this doesn't proceed further and go into trial because they basically said, hey, everything happened. It was just consensual. He's not going to plead. I'm a sports podcaster. I'm not big into legal jargon or the legal process, but if it's put in the Dodgers' hands, which if Manfred does that,
I don't think he will though.
My model for Manfred is disappointed but not surprised.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
every time when he goes low, he just finds more ways to just go lower on the list.
You mean when he was handing over an MVP trophy last year, 3 sheets to the wind?
Well, I'm sorry.
And finally, to round things out, we were joined twice this year by the head Patriots beat writer for the Boston Herald, Karen Guregian. And amongst other things, we discussed the unfair comparisons between the 2021 season for the Patriots and a little season that happened back in 2001.
Well, the one thing that I'll ask you about is, so I have a little bit of PTSD from 2007, right? I think we all do. Matt Judon to me feels a lot like Adelius Thomas. So Karen, I need you to tell me why this is not going to be the same situation, and tell me that you've seen things because you were there for Adelius, right?
Will we bring back the Jetsons? Remember that? He got sent away because he didn't get there in a snowstorm, and he said, "What do you mean? I'm going to get like the Jetsons and fly here?" That was like the best Adelius Thomas moment. I'm sorry, we regress, or I digress.
No, you're fine. But I when I think of an outside roaming linebacker from Baltimore that you spend a lot of money on, he's the first guy that comes to mind. So for Patriot fans like me out there, what have you seen so far in camp, right, that leads you to believe that he will fit in this system?
Well, he looks like a perfect fit. But it's so weird. So did Adelius Thomas. But I think Adelius Thomas basically, here's the thing with Bill Belichick and defense, and it applied to Jamie Collins too. You're going to do what Bill Belichick tells you, and you're going to play your position the way Bill Belichick wants you to. No freelancing, right? I think Adelius Thomas was a freelancer. Jamie Collins was a freelancer and got sent away. When he came back, he stopped the freelancing because he finally got it. Bill Belichick's defenses are so specific that everyone has to do their thing. And if someone kind of breaks rank, everything, is a miss. Do I think Judon seems more in line with doing what Belichick says? I do. So, but we'll see.
Good. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear.
Belichick hasn't spent, I know we're in the day of inflated salaries, but Judon represents the most Belichick has ever spent on a defensive player, free agent wise. So we'll see. And as I said, when we were chatting earlier, I like his makeup. I like Matt Judon's makeup. and he seems to get it. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Craig, go ahead. I know you got something to say.
I just want to sidebar real quick since we brought up Adelius Thomas. There aren't a lot of singular plays that I remember because I've watched football for a long time, like we all have. When I think of Adelius Thomas, I still think back in 2009 when Brett Favre was on the Jets and Adelius Thomas just destroying him like 40 yards back in the backfield that one play. I loved Adelius Thomas on the Patriots. He's one of my favorites.
Well, he actually, to be fair, he was actually very good in the playoffs for them one year. He might have been their best player.
It was 07, right?
Yeah. But again, it's just that he and Belichick clashed. Adelius saw himself doing, playing the way he wanted in the defense or doing what he wanted to do in the defense. Whereas, Belichick trying to put him in positions to succeed or positions that would best help the defense collectively. it might not have been where Davis wanted to play, but in Bill's mind, this is where he was needed. And I think that's where a lot of the clashing took place.
Yeah, that was just so I think Judon is obviously they're different players, right? But if you look at the tape, so much of his of the stats that really got him paid were predicated on the fact that he saw something and he did it, which made me believe that he was a freelancer. And I know that Belichick, as you mentioned, Belichick's defense is predicated on the fact that if everyone does what he thinks that they're going to do, it'll hold up. If one person doesn't, then you've exposed a whole side of the field. So that was my one concern. He's super talented. So is Adelius Thomas. But I'm glad to hear that you think that as of this point, he's someone that will fall in rank and do what he's supposed to do. That makes me feel really good.
He sounds like, well, I don't know. Again, you can, can talk a good game and sound like you're buying in. But for now, he sounds like he's buying in.
He's a really nice guy. Some would say sweet as apple pie.
Hi, I'm Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks. What did you do on your last Saturday night?
Did you hear something?
Toilet paper.
There's none. Nada. The reserves have gone dry. People are hoarding it. I should have done that.
They're all out of hand sanitizer at my Target.
Mark, when did you last watch the news?
We are getting reports of forced quarantines in China, Japan, and now Italy.
You're cutting onions in half and putting them around your apartment.
Yes, exactly. It kills the COVID.
Excuse me?
Let's go. Let's go. Get in.
Vamos, rápido.
Have you ever driven one of these?
Never.
I'll drive, ladies.
I've got the keys.
Excuse me, I'm lost. I'm looking for my wife. I got turned around.
Join me, Eric Roberts, Jennifer Elise Cox, and Ed Asner for The Last Saturday Night, an Electrocast podcast. You'll love it. Electrocast. Electrocast.